Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives have criticized the Trump administration's decision to suspend ammunition supplies to Ukraine, which they say could strengthen Russia at a key moment in the war. Politico reports. So, after the White House acknowledged that the Pentagon had frozen critical weapons deliveries to Ukraine, U.S. House of Representatives member Brian Fitzpatrick said he would actively look into this issue. We must build our own defense industrial base here in the United States while providing the necessary assistance to our allies who are defending their freedom from the invasion of a brutal dictator, Fitzpatrick said. Lawmakers from across the political spectrum called the arms freeze approved under the administration of former President Joe Biden a violation of Trump's renewed commitments to Kiev, which he made last week at a NATO summit in The Hague, including the possible sale of Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine. Republican Congressman Michael McCaul said he was investigating very carefully whether the Pentagon's freeze on aid to Ukraine violates legislation passed by Congress in 2024. He said the pause was ill-timed because it relieved Trump's pressure on Russian ruler Vladimir Putin to agree to a peace deal with Ukraine. If you want him to come to the negotiating table, you have to use leverage and pressure, and that could be Lindsey Graham's economic sanctions and the flow of weapons. If you eliminate the flow of weapons, yes, then you have no leverage with Putin to negotiate. McCaul said Democrats have also criticized the halt in arms supplies to Ukraine, but some of them do not blame Trump himself for this, but point to senior Pentagon officials. In particular, Senator Jeanne Shaheen wrote to U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon's top policy advisor Elbridge Colby. She said that such a pause undermines Trump's commitments made at the NATO summit and called on Secretary of State Marco Rubio to ensure that these commitments are fulfilled. The Trump administration's mixed signals undermine its own agenda to bring Putin to the negotiating table. This decision under Hegseth's leadership will only make it more difficult to achieve a just and lasting peace. Now is not the time for arbitrary decisions that undermine our national interests. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal called the rationale for the arms freeze misleading and perhaps even disingenuous. He said both Democrats and Republicans were surprised by the news and that the Ukrainians would suffer the most. People will lose their lives. More civilians will be injured, maimed. More homes, hospitals and schools will be destroyed. The Russians do not even pretend that they are attacking only military targets, he said. At the same time, some Republicans defended Trump's decision to hold up arms sales. Representative Brian Mast, a member of the House of Representatives, said he had not heard of specific delays but stressed the importance of keeping ongoing monitoring of supplies. We need to make sure that the supply chain works smoothly. But if checks are happening constantly, it keeps everyone on their toes. If there were no such constant control, then when something really needs to be checked, everything would stop. But this way, the system works more stably, he noted.
Russia's Federal Security Service, FSB, said on Thursday that it foiled a terror attack organized in St. Petersburg by Ukraine. The FSB said it detained a woman in St. Petersburg at the moment she was planting a bomb under the car of a high-ranking Russian officer upon Ukraine's instructions. The targeted officer is employee of a defense enterprise and has the title of a general. The woman, who is a Russian citizen, born in 2002, had been carrying out assignments for Ukrainian intelligence services, including prior to the operation in St. Petersburg, according to the report. The operation was caught on video, showing Special Forces officers bringing the suspect to the ground and restraining her with handcuffs, leaving her face down and motionless. The footage reveals that the operation was executed with calm precision. The suspect had painted pro-Ukrainian slogans in public places in the Moscow region and had attempted to set fire to a railway infrastructure facility, the FSB said. A criminal case has been launched against the suspect under the article of the Russian Criminal Code for attempted terrorist act.
Мне сказали просто проследить за этой машиной, и тогда мне дадут деньги.
Что ты делала сейчас?
Я пыталась какое-то устройство предложить под
Какое
машину.
The future of modern warfare is being built in Ukraine at this moment. New equipment is being developed and deployed in Ukraine at a significantly lower cost and in a remarkably shorter time compared to almost anywhere else in the world, Bloomberg reports. Currently, Ukraine depends on US intelligence and allied air defense systems to intercept Russian missiles. However, Kyiv is increasingly producing its own weapons. According to President Volodymyr Zelenski, today, Kyiv receives about 40% of its weapons from Ukrainian sources. Ground drones and unmanned aerial vehicles, which have been used on a large scale for the first time in the war with Russia, have sparked a revolution on the battlefield. Russian forces under Russian President Vladimir Putin's command have deployed nearly 695,000 soldiers along the front and continue to bombard civilian populations with missiles and drones. The main weapon against the invaders has become the adaptability of Ukraine's defense industry. A striking example is the modular robotic platform Termit, which serves both for transportation and clearing pathways. It is equipped with Starlink satellite internet and is already in use by more than 20 military units. TenCore, a company that started in February 2024 with 5 employees, now has 175 workers and projects $80 million in revenue for 2025 due to producing over 2,000 units of equipment. Investors sought to buy the company, but TenCore refused. Also, over 70% of Russian equipment has been destroyed by Ukrainian drones, making the country one of the most powerful drone armies in the world. Russia, in response, is ramping up drone production and using technologies that make them harder to jam. While Moscow scales up production, Ukraine bets on innovation and creativity, and this could change the course of the war. Whichever model prevails will decide the outcome of the war. The biggest obstacle for Ukraine's defense industry is funding. Despite a defense budget of $12 billion, Ukraine's production potential is 3 times greater than it is today. Kyiv seeks to attract more investment from its Western allies, including from the European new project, SAFE, which envisions $150 billion for defense tech funding.